Today we'll have an opportunity to hear about some examples of approaches to urban flood risk reduction applied in cities in countries such as Argentina, Denmark, Spain, Netherlands, and Romania. This webinar is organized under auspices of the South Asia Resilience Knowledge Initiative in collaboration with GFDRR. My name is Jolanta Crespin-Watson. I am a lead disaster risk management specialist in the World Bank in the South Asia region. And this session will be moderated by Elif Ayhan, a senior disaster risk management specialist in the World Bank in South Asia region, and our colleague, Joop Studesdijk, who is lead water resources management specialist from South Asia region, will close the event with the final remarks and reflections. So let me kickstart our webinar by saying that urban flooding has become a development challenge to countries around the world, and hence also growing focus of the World Bank assistance to its clients. We know that floods are the most frequent among natural hazards, causing devastation, economic damages, and losses of lives as well. The key contributing factors to the increasing flood risk we are observing in the cities are rapid and poorly planned urbanization, along with the climate change. We've been supporting national and subnational governments around the globe to address flood risk by employing a comprehensive suite of soft and hard measures, from helping to better understand flood risk and its drivers, to develop mitigation options, policies, risk-informed land use plans, through support to implementation of investments tailored to specific local context. So overall, the bank promotes an integrated urban flood risk management through a risk-based and forward-looking approach to make urban growth a positive force for development. Managing flood risk in an integrated and sustainable way requires a change in traditional thinking in favor of data-driven, robust decision-making, a combination of green and gray solutions, and risk-informed urban planning, along with good governance and proactive disaster risk management. And we'll hear today about some of these aspects. So with that, and without further ado, let me hand over to my colleague Elif to introduce our first speaker and moderate this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jolanta. As you were opening, people are still connecting, and we have a full house and a really full agenda. So our first presenter is Mr. Jonathan Rakhev. He's the project manager for climate adaptation at the Center for Climate Adaptation and Technology and Environment Administration. So, Mr. Rakhev, you're going to have 20 minutes, please, for your presentation. And with this, over to you. Thank you so much. Please let us know if you're facing any connection issues.
I am very sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
oh,
we can
sorry.
hear you well. Thank you so much.
Oh, I had an awful lot of technical issues. I'm very sorry. I had to move an office building right before this meeting. So bad timing. I hope that the technology will be with me now. So now the sound is working and the camera is working now, right?
Yes, both are working perfectly. Thank you. Now we see you.
Okay. I'm very sorry I didn't hear anything of the introduction because apparently something didn't work. But so could you repeat it a little bit, or is it just the presentation now?
Just the presentation. You can go ahead. You can share your screen. Thank you.
Yes.
We
There
cannot
seems to
see.
be no, because I'm very sorry, but it's not working.
If you still need time, maybe we change a little bit of order and we move to the next presenter if you prefer.
Yeah, that's probably
Yes.
a good idea. Yeah, definitely.
Elif?
So let's do so. Mr. Felix Francis, is it okay if we skip the first presentation and start with yours? Mr. Felix is the president of a Spanish water technological platform, and he's a professor of hydraulic and environmental engineering, a class that I had quite some difficulty when I was studying civil engineering. So full respect to you, Professor Felix. And Professor Felix will talk about spatial planning policy with flood risk prevention at its core. Professor, over to you. And we can see your slides nicely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's start with two important concepts related with urban floods, which is the typology of urban floods, and also for me it's very important that it will be clear the difference between flood hazard and flood risk. Concerning the types of urban floods, it's highly important to distinguish between what can be called pluvial, also sometimes internal floods, which is the situation of
apologies for interrupting, Professor. The audio is a little bit low for me. I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but probably we will hear you better if you can come closer to your microphone. Thank you.
Oh. Now it's better? Can you hear me?
Yes, it's much better. Thank you.
Okay. So I was talking about the pluvial floods, situation of a urban flood where the catchment producing the runoff is within the city. Two important characteristics is that in this situation, well, with the exception of mega cities, of course, the magnitudes are relatively low, and everywhere in the planet, the protection level against this type of floods is between 5 and 15 years of a time period. On the other hand, we can have pluvial floods, or also called external floods. In this case, the catchment is much bigger than the city. So the magnitude is large, very large, catastrophic, and in general, the standard protection level all around the world is around 100 years. Very important advice is that better not mix solution. If you're talking about pluvial floods, the type of solution is one, or a set of possible solutions. In pluvial floods, the solution will be different. Don't mix it. Also, it's important to distinguish between hazard and risk. The hazard is the combination of one hand, the frequency of the floods, and the frequency will be defined in a hydrological study, and the magnitude of the flood. The magnitude will be estimated using hydraulic models in a hydraulic study. So the hazard is how frequency or the different magnitudes of the floods in your area of interest. The result is a hazard map, actually a set of hazard maps, usually one map of magnitudes for each return period of interest. And the main magnitude that usually we map is the maximum water depth for each different return period. But the risk is another story. In the risk, we are including also the flood damages at each point of the territory. For this reason, is needed what is called vulnerability curve. It defines the potential damages as a function of course, the type of land use that we have at each point of the territory, the time of the year, especially for agricultural losses. But the more important thing is the magnitude. The magnitude, maximum water depth, or flood velocity, or flood duration, whatever. Because there is a high uncertainty in these vulnerability curves, important advice is, if possible, to validate vulnerability curves with historical flood damages information. For example, coming from insurance company. So we have on one hand the hazard maps, on the other hand the vulnerability for each land use type. The statistical combination in a space of hazard and vulnerability will give us the risk. The risk can be defined as the mean annual damage density at each point of the territory. The proper overlapping is a complex statistical integration. It can be approximated, but in practice, this can be done easily if we have all ingredients, of course. We have the hazard maps and we have the vulnerability curves. Using a GIS is just a matter of time, combination of different layers of information. The result can be the density, the risk density in euros euros or whatever, dollar, whatever, per year per square meter. But we are not interested, especially in the economical losses. We can obtain the risk of swept away cars or affected people or whatever. It's not. We can apply the same integral definition, changing the vulnerability in terms of dollars or in terms of swept away cars or affected people. Well, at the end, you have risk. What you can see here is on the left hand, the hazard map for 100-year return period, the light, the blue intensities, difference in what maximum water depth, in actual situation, and in scenario 3 is for renaturalization of the main channel and the construction of green corridors in the flood-prone area. Okay, you can see clearly the reduction of hazard. If we we evaluate the risk, in this case the risk reduction, then we can see the effectivity of different scenarios. Scenario 3 will cause a reduction of 31 million euros per year in the whole prone area. But we have the cost of the different measure we can obtain is the effectivity of each of these scenarios. In this case, the effectivity has been measured in the payback period and in the internal rate return of 75 years. Clearly, the scenario 3 is profitable just by in economical terms. Okay, after this general introduction of some important concepts from my point of view, let's talk now about the PATECOVA. The PATECOVA is the Spanish acronym of Territorial Action Plan Against the Risk of Flooding in the Valencia region. The Valencia region is in the east coast of Spain, in the Mediterranean coast. This is the Valencia city, the capital of the region. And I will underline two main characteristics from the flood point of view. First thing, the rainfall intensity, or actually in this case, the daily maximum precipitation, annual maximum daily precipitation can be very high in this area can be the mean, the mean is clearly above 100 millimeters. So pretty soon we are talking about every year, especially in autumn, of daily precipitation of 200, 300. The record, I think, is 800 millimeters, something like that, in just one day. So it's very extreme precipitation. And at the same time, there is a high density population. Just to have an idea, the Valencia region is 10% of the Spanish area, and it has, sorry, 5% of the Spanish area, and it's 10% of the population. So we have an overlapping of hazard, in this case, storm, extreme events, and population. Population, of course, means vulnerable. And historically, we have two catastrophic floods who impacted in the society of the Valencian people. The one which is in the brain, in the gene actually of the Valencia people is the 1957 Turia River flood. The Turia River is crossing the city. It produced not too much death, only 81, but in terms of economical damage, 1,400 millions of euros, 23 euros. Updated the euros to nowadays. And the second one was in the south of the city, in another river, in the Júcar River. In 1982, the Toes Dam collapsed during a large natural flood. The natural flood was around 10,000 cubic meters per second, and with the collapse of this earth dam, the peak was around 16,000 cubic meters per second. Then this extreme flood with incredible only 8 casualties, 8 deaths, but again, high economical impact, 1,200 millions of euros in damages. But in both cases, very strong psychological impact in the society. So at the same time, in the 80s, the land use and urban planning competence were transferred to the regional governments in Spain. And because of this historical situation, the high-level officials in the regional government were aware about the importance of floods in land use planning. They contacted at that time with experts, in particular with experts of my research institute in my university, Polytechnic University of Valencia, UP. So after this first contact, in 87, within the coordination regulation of the Metropolitan area of Valencia, it was produced a first flood hazard map. I remember, well, I was not in the meeting, I was just a student at that time, working in the research institute, but as a student, I remember that people going to the meeting said that one of the mayor of the city was saying that why is possible that my new school is in a flat area. Okay, it is crazy to think in this way. In 92, there was the development of hazard estimation and mapping methodology in 5 pilot cases. And in 94, we did an exhaustive in-space mapping of location of flood zones and points with significant hazard and risk, and by typology. With field work, this is a hand map, but we convert in that time, 94, and GIS using the ArcInfo for the work. Important in this process, all the time in collaboration between the university, experts in the university, and the regional government in charge of the land use plan. So after our work, it was published the regional flood hazard map in 96. We finished around 95. This work, regional scale, very rough delimitation, but important thing for land use planning. This map was exhaustive in space. It means that it's important to be exhaustive in order to prevent risk situation in hazard areas. Okay. We updated in 2013. Because a regional map, we simplify the hazard classification in six levels, combining 3 different frequencies and 2 magnitude. Low magnitude, general maximum water depth below 80 centimeters, and high magnitude, maximum water level in general in the flood prone area or in the area higher than 80 centimeters. Well, after that, we started I think, the development of 3 main elements of the Patrikova. We finished the work in 1999. It was approved in this century, 20 years ago, by the way, with 3, as I mentioned, with 3 main elements. A flat risk estimation report with the objective of to do a regional analysis, locating where we have more risk, where we have more density of risk, not hazard, risks. Okay, with an action plan, it's around close to 200 different measurements, structural measurements, and reforestation actions, but prioritizing in terms of the hazard reduction, including efficiency and effectiveness in terms of the risk, and that it was a plan which was mandatory as a urban planning regulation. In this case, the reduction of the risk, reducing the vulnerability and exposition in the field. The most important thing from my point of view, because in the long term, that's a key action, the urban planning regulation. We determine how to include in the flood hazard and risk in the urban development plans using a flood study. We propose a set of flood proofing measurements for buildings and infrastructure to reduce vulnerability, and a land use zone to reduce the exposition in the future. It means that in this case, the blue colors or hazard direct the developments to the non-hazard areas, or at least to the less hazard areas.
Apologies, Professor. It's last 5 minutes, please. Thank you.
Excuse me? Last 5 minutes.
You have five more minutes. 5 actually.
Yes. Yes,
Thank you.
Almost. Yeah. We estimated the reduction with the action plan and the urban planning regulation in the future. In terms of risk, the reduction was estimated in 61%. So significant future reduction. After our first version of the Patrikova, there was produced the European Flood Directive. Well, actually, Flood Risk Assessment and Management Directive, which is clear again, as in the Patrikova. The purpose of the directive is to establish the framework for the assessment and management of flood risk, aiming the reduction of the adverse consequence, the reduction of risk, with 2 instruments: detailed flood hazard and risk maps in the areas with higher risk, and with a proper flood risk management plan. Okay. The spatial domain was usually, well, it changed from country to country, but most countries in Europe, the spatial domain was the river basin district. They exclude in the flood directive the fluvial urban floods, with the promotion of public information and active participation of the stakeholders, and an implementation in 3 steps with a 6 years periodical revision. We are not just finished the second revision of the application of the flood directive. In 2015, we revised the Patrikova. We means the regional government and us. In this case, we just updated the regional hazard map, going from 300 to more than 1,000 flood-prone areas. The Patrikova was adapted to the European and the Spanish new laws concerning the flood directive and concerning the land management. we added the social risk evaluation, and one important thing the Patricova is that it promotes the implementation of green infrastructure such as green corridors, for example, because the synergy with biodiversity sustainability. So we have national, European, national, and regional levels. How is the coordination at this moment? At regional level is basically based on the regional land use plannings to the Patricova. It wants to be exhaustive in space based on regional hazard maps. And the main tool is the approval of flood studies for urban planning. So the objective is urban planning adaptation. At national European level is the application of the European Floods Directive. In the first step of the application of the flood directive, there is a preliminary selection of flood hazard maps. We use the Patricova flood hazard map. At the river measure authorities develop detailed hazard maps for the selected areas with higher potential risk, and for these areas also the river basin authority develop a particular flood risk management plan for its flood program. As summary conclusions, for me it's very important. The objective is the risk reduction in the flood prone area. You have the risk assessment, it's possible to prioritize between different flood prone areas, but also within the same flood prone areas to estimate the efficiency of different measures, which help the selection of the combination of them to be applied. In the long term, it's very important the non-structural measures, especially the land use planning. Because flood risk prevention is a matter of land use planning, it's important the coordination between land use planning authority and the river basin authority. How is the situation now of the Patricova journey? Up to 3 years ago, a lot of municipal urban plans have been informed, covering approximately 12% of the Valencia region area, which is a significant area. Of them, 15,000 were detected with some potential flood risk. Half of them were accepted with some adaptation, of course, and the other half were rejected for development, for developing in these 1,700 hectares. The benefits, we estimated the potential damage avoided in 50 million euros per year, and which is more important, in the long term, decision makers and the general public are much more aware of flood risk today than 20 years ago. Now, it's impossible to hear a technician or a mayor of a city say that why my school is flooded, change the flood area. The society is aware of the flood risk, and together, decision makers and general public, we want to reduce the risk in the future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Francis. You indeed took us all the way from risk assessment to planning to action plans, regulations, and really affecting how the city has a shape based on this information and planning. Thank you so much. Shall we now go back to Mr. Regev and test again if the screen and the presentation is showing? Mr. Johnson Regev?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so let's give it another try.
I hope it works here. Just a minute. Okay, do you see my screen now?
Yes, yes, now we see your screen.
Okay.
And you also have 20 minutes, please, for your presentation. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I'm very sorry for my delay, and do apologize. That was not intended, of course. okay, let's get to it. Short about me. My name is Jonathan Regev. I work in the municipality of Copenhagen in the technical and environmental administration. In our, we are a lot of departments here, but the department I work in is in the construction, where a lot of my colleagues are doing the actual projects that we see on the street. We are, though, a few of us who are doing more planning, strategic planning, and development projects, and so on. And my background is within urban planning, and I've been working with climate adaptation for 5 years or so. I would like to present to you the story about the climate adaptation here in Copenhagen. Yes. Oh, sorry. I have a little bit of issue here. Okay, so now the slide change now, right? Yes. Okay, cool. As we all know, the climate has changed a lot here, as well in Denmark, of course. Back in 2008, these charts were made, trying to see how the weather pattern would change in different scenarios, and we could see that we would get 30% more rain in the next 100 years. We could see that we would get more and frequent and more heavy cloudbursts, and we could see that the sea level would rise 1 meter within 100 years. So this was 2008, so quite a time ago, and already back then we could see things would change, and now it's 15 years later we can see the changes already happening. So following this, that we could see that the climate was changing and that we would get more rainburst and cloudburst in the future. Then in 2010, so 13 years ago, these risk assessment maps were made, where the one you see to the left is a flooding, a 100-year event in 2000, in 100 year. When that will happen, how will that affect, how much damage will that do to the municipality? And the reason why you see this empty spot in the middle, that's because that's another municipality within Copenhagen. It's not an area in the map. So this was a risk assessment that showed that we would have a lot of damage in measured in money if there were to come a big cloudburst. So that was the left here, and the right is the sea level rise. If the sea level will rise 1 meter as projected in 2000 in 100 year, then you can see the same pattern here, that we would have a lot of economic damage. So this was made into a plan, this plan, called the Copenhagen Climate Adaptation Plan, where you have, as you see here in the chart in the left, that we could see that the sea level rise is not an immediate threat, whereas the rain is a large threat, and those charts will cross at some point, and then the sea level will be a higher threat or more immediate threat. But we could see that we have a lot of things that we wanted to act on, but it's a very slow planning. It takes a long time to make decisions and to implement them, and so even though that 100 years is a long time in the future, we just know that things takes time, and big things take a lot of time, and we have learned that the hard way, so to speak. So even though that back in 2010 we didn't have any big floods, cloudburst, we didn't have any sea level rise really, So for the normal people on the street, there were no climate related problems for in the everyday situation. This was only a problem in the mind of planners in the municipality and the state. So it was a hard plan to get approval to go on with. But then something happened right when this plan was going. 2 weeks before this plan was to be voted for in the city council, this happened. The largest cloudburst in 100 years in Copenhagen. It was back then something like a 850-year event. This cloudburst, 2nd July 2011, and that of course changed a lot, because now people could see that the city was not at all prepared for a heavy rain like this. The damages were nobody died, fortunately, but the damages in money were a lot, around 2 billion euros. So that was a huge wake-up call for the politicians, of course, and for people living in Copenhagen. So when the cloudburst plan had to be voted for 2 weeks after in the city council, they of course accepted it. So that was so we had this cloudburst that was in July 2011, and in August 2011, the city council approved the plan, and of course said to the co-workers, the workers, the people working in the planning, that hurry up, you need to make a plan now. So that was so already in 2000 and in 1 year, 1.5 years after, there was a broad plan what we wanted to do, and the overall idea is that when you have to handle handling runoff water, and water is a job for the utility company. So if you ask the utility company, you say to them, we have a big problem with all this water, what are we going to do? Then the utility company in Denmark, and I guess a lot of other places, they would say make bigger sewers, because that's what they know, that's what they do. They make sewers and get rid of the water. The plan was instead here in Copenhagen that if we have to spend so much money in building, digging up almost the entire city and redoing it in the streets, we might as well make it in a way so people can have some that it gives back more to the city than it takes. So just instead of just putting a lot of money into some concrete sewers, we wanted to handle as much possible, as much water as possible on the surface, so we could have this what we call added value, where we have water in the streets, normal everyday rain and cloudburst rain, and along the way also have more trees, greening, using all these nature-based solutions. So this was the basically the plan for 2012, saying that we wanted to let's get more value out of all this digging and investment. And then in 2013, these plans were made in different areas of the city, because the city is 7 different catchment areas. And then in 2015, we were ready to implement the big plan. The backbone of the plan is these typologies, solutions. One is cloudburst boulevards, where we, by transferring the boulevards or roads, we can transport water away. So that's one solution. The next is number 2, using as an add-on to transporting water in the street. We can also have pipes underground. So, for instance, the street can have a certain amount of water, but if there's more water, we can add a pipe underground. That's of course the expensive solution. The third topology was retention, roads, boulevards, streets, and squares. We're trying as much as digging holes and putting trees and greens and biodiversity, and then trying to delay the water as much as possible. And then we have a second one. The fourth one is where we have these green streets, where we also have some water storage capacity in the street, as well as the retention. And of course, number 5 here is greener, smaller roads, where we don't need to handle a lot of water, but some water will be needed to handle, and we could do that in these by rain gardens and so on. So this led to this map with that was the grand cloudburst plan back then in 2015, with a lot of projects. We could see back then that even though that we want to keep handle as much water as possible on ground, it was just not possible, because the capacity was not large enough in the ground projects alone. So we needed to do also quite a few pipe projects. These pipe projects can be smaller, sewage-like pipes, up until very, very huge metro-sized cloudburst tunnels that are being made right now. So this was the plan. I can tell you now already that we can see now that was too optimistic, this plan, that we're not going to do all these projects. But the idea that we're going to do less projects, but the idea is the same, that keep as much projects as possible above ground using nature-based solutions, rather than just putting them below ground and hiding them away. Here in Denmark and Copenhagen, of course, as I told you, these handling of water, both fresh water and wastewater, is a job for the utility company. The utility company here in Copenhagen is called HOFOR, and therefore this planning, these projects, they are done in a lot of cooperation between the municipality. We are the blue one here, Copenhagen, and the green one is the utility company. We really need to work together a lot, because this is a new thing to do. It's a shift in the way that we used to do projects, that we now have to, instead of just getting rid of the water, we have to put it above ground, and we want to use it for recreational values and not just something that we want to get rid of. So it has demanded a lot of cooperation, and we do that both on the project manager level, and different chief levels. Yes. So you can see here in the city of Copenhagen, the municipality, that we are doing the planning for the climate adaptation planning. We are doing the surface projects. So if it's a project that are above ground, we do the project. We are coordinating the projects. we have a lot of policies that we want to do more greening. We want to do more. We want to increase the biodiversity. We want to reduce the urban heat island. We want to have a more, that this citizens of Copenhagen, that they can enjoy more green in their everyday life. So this is all combined into the climate adaptation projects and work. So this is what we say that the municipality, this is what we do, what we want to do. That's what our responsible for. Then HOFOR, the utility company, they are responsible for the hydraulic calculations. So when they are responsible for telling us as the municipality how much water we will have to handle in all these projects. Each project, how much water will there be, where will it come from, where will it need to go, and what quality, water quality will it have. That's partly the utility company. The utility company is also responsible for the sewage system, of course. They are responsible for the pipe construction and tunnel construction, and this is what you see here on the left picture. Equipment for boring some of the cloudburst tunnels. The utility company are also responsible for the green roads. And the green roads are the smallest typology we have, and that's often in smaller private roads, and it's difficult for us in the municipality to work here because we're not really allowed to work on private land. But the utility can do that. Utility company, they can do that, so they are doing these green roads. And overall, it is the utility company that pays for. They are financing a lot of this work, cloudburst road, cloudburst and climate adaptation work, because essentially it's a water handling issue, and that's they are obliged to pay for that. The way we are doing are going ahead with this quite large plan is to divide the city into all these smaller water catchment areas, as you see here, and then doing them one area at the time with detailed, very detailed hydraulic calculations. Where we in these, so we see where the utility company, they do a hydraulic calculation for an area, and then we look at the product, the result, and we can see, okay, where are the issues, where are the troubles, what kind of solutions can we use here, and this is where that the city, which I represent, that I want to have as much solutions above ground as possible. And sometimes the utility company agrees, sometimes not. So that's where some of the issues there are some. That's where the negotiations are often important. And we are doing we are evaluating where we can do this potential greening, and then we have to describe the risks in this implementation method, and we have to find out what other projects are there in this concrete area, and how can we maybe, hopefully, do find some synergies. So in a city as Copenhagen, as a lot of other cities, it's a big issue that too much is going on. So we often see that more parts of the city are interested in the same area. So we have to. So if somebody wants to do a traffic project, and somebody wants to do a greening project, and somebody wants to do a day renovation project, then we have to try to mix it together and make a project that can handle all these issues that we want to handle. So yeah, as I told you, we are implementing in a smaller. Then we have a larger catchment area. Then we do a smaller cloudburst branch, as we call them, where we're doing this detailed calculation, and then that should lead to project out there in the real world. So the status of implementation right now is this map, as you see here. A lot of the smaller projects, the small green roads and so on, they haven't been made yet, and probably they won't be. We are right now more focused on the creating the backbone of the water handling infrastructure. So it's the larger projects, it's the large concrete, the large cloudburst tunnels that are being made that have a huge capacity. But yeah, this is the status right now. We do, though, there is a new law from the state that has been implemented that tells us that we need to calculate the business case on these projects in a new way. So right now we are looking into a near future where the service level that we are planning at the starting point of our planning, that will be lowered a lot. We don't know exactly how much, but we can tell for sure that it will be a lot. So this is probably going to change this plan. As we see now, the co-benefits of the adaptation doing this climate adaptation and cloudburst protection is the main purpose. It should be remembered that for the most time, the city is not affected by these cloudbursts, so therefore it's important that the solutions we build in the city also have other purposes than just dealing with rainwater. These elements are not a part of the business case, but are very important, especially the opportunities where the cloudburst projects can offer the city to make it more green and have increase in biodiversity. And there's also, of course, a lot of social concerns here where we can do a project in a social deprived area to try and lift it, and we have seen that that is actually working. So yeah, it's mentioned here that what we see as the benefits of the adaptation, the co-benefits. So it's and that's also something that's, of course, it's important for the politicians and the people living in Copenhagen. Here we have the organization of the cloudburst program. So I told you we have there is a steering committee where there's the CEOs of the municipality and the utility company. So that's high level. Below that there's the steering committee. Sorry, the steering committee, they meet twice a year. Below that we have the coordination group, which is the manager level, where that is also between the municipality and the utility company and the local managers, and they meet once a month, twice a month. And below that we have the Center for Climate Adaptation. This is, you see, that's where I work, and that's where we do the projects and the planning, and steering the economy, and that's where we have this direct contact with the co-work with our utility company colleagues, where we when we have a project, we meet and have entire days where we are together and work together. And then below that we have the resource network, where we try to get out and grasp the entire organization, because as I told you, there's so much going on. So we want to, when we do a project, we want to do all these, try to get in all these things that the municipality want to do in once. So now we are, I want to show you some pictures of different projects, and you can always.
Apologies, Mr. Rek. If you can also wrap up, please, as you show the pictures.
Sorry, can you?
Could you also wrap up the presentation as you're showing the pictures?
Yes.
We are running a few minutes late. Thank you so much.
Yes, so I'll just show you some pictures here, and if you have questions for some of them, you can tell me afterwards. Yeah, typical projects here. With this project, all you see that is green here used to be black or asphalt. So that was quite a special project. The next one is this is the Kansminaxen. That's a brand new project. Only opened last few months ago. Quite huge. And yeah, I'm just gonna rush through here. Then here we have a square, a park in the center of the city. That is it's a normal park, but it's also a cloudburst project. But here it's important that for the people using the park every day, they don't notice it. And here is a project that was made in a more social deprived area. So here we tried to do something that could create a place of belonging, and something that the local residents would know and be proud of. It's the same picture. And here we have a project that is done together with the skating area. Yeah. In plans of what are the challenges when we are doing this planning? Yeah, we know we have learned that we can't just make one plan that will last 100 years. We need to keep on adapt the plan all the time because things change, laws changes, business case changes, a lot of things changes, the political issues changes. So it's very important to not to stick to the plan, but be ready to adapt it, change it for new realities. Another thing is there's different wishes for the urban life. What do people want? That's of course also very different where you are in the city. What kind of people are there? Somebody wants wild grass, some won't. It's very different. Then we need to work within the existing infrastructure of the city. That is very difficult sometimes because, yeah, when when you just can't. Sometimes we really need to think twice before we just doing a project because people live there. We can't just do whatever we want. And then there's these class of professions. We have seen that especially in the beginning with the hydraulics and architects and city planners and traffic managers. They all have very different perspectives on what is the good solution. And governance challenges. We'll learn that it's very important to involve as much as possible of the city agencies because otherwise we will just get a problem later in the city. There are a lot of, and also we need to involve external stakeholders from the beginning as soon as possible. We need to keep the politicians aligned and focused on the project. That's also not easy always. Sometimes it demands a cloudburst before they realize how important it is. We can see the economy in the project. It's that's a huge challenge to keep the economy from not just escalating. And then these professions. So this is the last slide here. What have we learned? We have learned that multidisciplinary collaboration is really essential, and it's very important to have all the different stakeholders in the city to work together. We have learned that these projects that we want to do, they have a very high complexity, probably more complex than other projects in the city because there are so many stakeholders involved. We have learned that it's not easy to want to do something in a new way because somebody often are used to we do it this way, and if somebody wanted to do another way, somebody probably wouldn't like it. We have learned that the original plans we needed that they were not ready. They were not good enough to be the background for actual projects. We had to do more planning before we could go into the actual put some of the digging machines into the ground. We have learned that the hydraulic connection between projects is very important, and it's not easy to give an exact answer on how these projects are, how they are connected in the best way. But it's important that they're connected because that way we have this added value and added capacity, and that the potential for how we can use the urban space in how we can use that for water storage depends a lot of how we know how we want to think twice on water management. So it's definitely a new thing. That was I think I wrapped it up now. So the presentation is done.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing the impressive experience of Copenhagen. You took us all the way from planning, identifying the actual investments, nature-based solutions, and the challenges around how to prioritize, how to work in a complex city environment with a broad range of stakeholders. Indeed, reminded us of the challenges of actual implementation, but the results are impressive, and how you deal with those challenges are impressive. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Now let's move to another wonderful city, Buenos Aires, and we have Mariano Jordan Christoph, who is the Cultural Change and Natural-Based Solutions Advisor for the city of Buenos Aires. If you could share your screen and start your presentation, please. And I'm sorry to say, but you have 10 minutes and we're running 10 minutes late. So we would really appreciate if you can stick with 10 minutes of time. Thank you. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. You are seeing my screen, my presentation?
Yes, it's visible. Thanks.
Okay. Well, first, thank you to Copenhagen team. We work for the last 3 years with them, a very high professional team, and we get a lot of inspiration and also technical support from there. So thank you, Copenhagen City. And well, in that frame of a strategic cooperation between World Bank and Copenhagen, we developed our water adaptation plan. Of course, we have to be prepared for a different kind of storms in Buenos Aires city, and also we are surrounded by very big rivers. So we start to stop thinking only in building big expensive pipes, and we start to combine different type of solutions, not only natural based solutions, also cultural solutions, and we start for change or expanded our vision. So we stop seeing the water as a problem that we have to get out of the city, and we start thinking the water also an opportunity to build a more attractive city. So our new vision is to recover the relation between people and water in the city, centered on the respect for nature, enjoyment, and resilience. Well, we develop an adaptation plan. We start thinking in response to flooding, but we notice that it's more like but like that. So we talk about three objectives. One is to reduce the risk of flooding, but also we want to improve the water quality to develop a more attractive city, and also to promote a cultural change towards a better and structured relation to water, to respond for flooding, but also to enjoy the water in the city. So we need to adapt to the changing climate, combining gray solutions, pipes and natural-based solutions, and also cultural change solutions, and also work in the pollution of the waterways and to expand the limited relationship with water. So we propose long-term public policies. We work a lot with different areas and teams of the city to have agreement and consensus about that. And well, we want to put down the water risk and the pollution, and to put up the enjoyment, the water awareness, the resilience, the relation with nature, the biodiversity, the water governance, the city participation. So we put in the middle the relation between water and people, and a multidimensional approach. So we have the structural measures. We make 45 kilometers of pipes for flooding. It's a lot in the last 8 years. But also we make very nice green solutions, blue solutions, and we work a lot in education, citizen participation, and awareness. So today I will share with you one specific project that is in the south of Buenos Aires city. It's the reservoir of one of our streams that are streams, but are like European rivers. And well, it's the Sildanias stream. This is the area in the south of the city. Buenos Aires have different parts and different types of neighborhoods. These neighborhoods are close to be below the poverty line. So it's very important for us to protect them for flooding. Here in the blue is the area of the reservoir. This like the reservoir looks. And this is the situation before of the flood spots before we implement a combination between gray solutions and this big reservoir. This is before, this is now. So in the flooding spots, it works really very well, but we also work in the other part. We work a lot in making this reservoir a place to expand our relation with our rivers and with nature. So this is a very big wetland that is the bigger wetland that we recover in Buenos Aires city, and we begin attracting biodiversity that, especially of birds and insects, that we don't see some years ago. And what we do here is to build an information post and education trail. We make some sign systems for the reservoir. We talk about climate adaptation, about how to respond for floodings, about the biodiversity, about the history of our rivers, etc., etc. That is like the project implemented look like. This is some of the birds that we begin attracting again, and we make a plan of activation, because the natural-based solutions, it shows to work very well here, very well for flooding, but we also need to make a strong activation. So we're beginning to make things like that with volunteers, with citizen participation, with schools. We have been working in this activation from 1.5 years. And well, I don't have much time, but what can I share with you quickly are some tips to implement things like that. And one of the tips is to, if you want to make an activation plan in a big natural-based solution flooding project, it's to think a lot in the bus logistic to attract people to the place, to think in put some trained guides, especially for schools, but also for citizens, to make more attractive the visit to the place, have some ad hoc headquarters near for some logistics and for improve the maintenance of the project. Of course, bathroom near, and the integration of that activations of natural-based solutions with education and citizen participation programs. That things that it's very important, because for our objective of promote a cultural change in water and climate adaptation, we go inside the schools with content we develop with the support of our bank, educational content, and we link some activities for the teachers and the children in the schools with visits to the natural-based solutions that we develop all around the city. So to resume, for this activation of natural-based solutions, we put 4 dimensions. One was guided visits schools. We make daily, weekly visits. Tree plantation with schools. Volunteers plantations. That was we invite open from the government, and the people inscribe and participate. Some around between 30 and 50 participants each time. And when we end planting trees and we don't have more space to plant trees with the with citizens, we begin some cleaning days with volunteers. Also to continue this activation. Talking a little about the impact, 300 volunteers per year, about the cleaning days volunteers. With schools, we plant 1,000 native trees for this new wetland. Of course, that plantation have a design of specialists of biodiversity to attract more birds and more insects and building again the ecosystems. Volunteers plantations, 800 of native trees with them. So totally was 1,800 of native trees in this specific project. And guided schools, we receive 2,500 students per year in that activation visit with schools. So that's what I have to share about this project. For closing, a video. So that's one of the videos that we use to promote the place. So That's from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Christoph. This was indeed a very interesting and impressive example of an actual major intervention in a city like Buenos Aires using nature-based solutions, and the tips you have shared how to make this piece of infrastructure and actually flood protection solution as part of daily lives of the citizens is something that we should all take note. Thank you so much for this presentation. Now we have a list of distinguished counterparts from the countries in South Asia region, and I would like to invite them to share their reactions and maybe some key questions or comments to our three presenters. And I've been informed that in the meeting we have Mr. Dr. Krishna Vatsa, who is the member of National Disaster Management Authority in India. Sir, if you're online, would you like to come in to share your remarks and reactions? Yes, Dr. Vatsa, over to you, please. And for this part, we have three people I will invite, and we also have our counterparts from Bangladesh and Pakistan. So if we can keep our remarks like to 10 minutes roughly, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to the World Bank for inviting me to this conference and having this opportunity to review these three wonderful presentations. What it really brings out, and since we are working on the issue of urban flood management in the country, and we are right now in the midst of developing a nationwide urban flood management program focusing on 7 large cities, I think it's very, very instructive for us. What it really confirms is that each city is different. Each city needs to have its own unique and distinctive flood management solutions that we need to balance between the structural and non-structural solutions. We need to also include the nature-based solutions, and that the mix of these cities would very much vary from a mix of solutions would actually vary from one city to another. We are trying to develop these programs, and we recognize that in each city, the mix varies considerably. The early warning system, the flood forecasting system, the stormwater drainage, and several solutions which are actually in the nature of holding ponds, wetland expansion, wetland reclamation. All this actually are have significant variations across the cities. But what is very, very important, and there are 2 or 3 important issues that I want to raise. One is that, and perhaps it is truer of the cities in the developing countries, because we have very highly very rapidly urbanizing cities, or the density of the population is very, very high. As a result, some of the options are very limited. We don't have the kind of space over which we can plan several flood management efforts. So that's one thing, that perhaps distinguishes the cities in the developed countries from developing countries. The density in the developed countries is much, much less compared to the developing countries. And that brings me to the next point. In the cities of developing countries, the people become the central reference point. You develop solutions around people, around their living arrangements, around their social arrangements, And this is something that perhaps I didn't see in the presentation, the reference to the people. And maybe it's largely because the cities are not facing the kind of problems which the developing countries face. Because of the pressure that we have on the cities, and because that reduce the scope of the solutions, we also need to raise some of these issues to the political level, which means that we need to have a broader policy at the national level, that we need to think of a political economy framework for dealing with the issue of the floods. Now, for example, we have a serious problem because the river beds are encroached, or we have a serious problem because the low-lying areas which get flooded very fast are occupied by low-income groups. Now, these are very, very important issues, imponderables in dealing with the flood risk management. And whenever we need to apply the solutions, we have to take into account some of these systemic issues. And some of these systemic issues could only be addressed not through the city specific solutions, but through a national framework. So what we are trying to do is that by developing a program that is meant for the 7 biggest cities of India, we would also like to expand to the other cities. And in course of developing and implementing these programs, we have a broader mitigation framework. We have a broader policy framework for dealing with the urban flooding. It is becoming a very, very serious issue. Another point that I would like to raise is the resilience of infrastructure and how the services get affected. And what is very, very important is that we work at the level of these critical infrastructure and utilities and ensure that our solutions ensure the resilience of the critical infrastructure, that our services, our utilities are functional all the time. And that also brings in the element of emergency, not just the emergency response, but also certain other arrangements, such as, we need to install large scale pumps. Whatever we do, we need to install pumps so that we can empty the water in certain areas which are very prone to high level of water logging. So I would like to just sum up my intervention saying that each city has its own unique set of solutions. These solutions combine structural and non-structural measures, that these solutions need to be visualized in the context of the settlement patterns of the city, that they need a broader policy framework, and they need a broader national approach. And that's how I think we will find a more sustainable solution to the problem of urban flooding, which is becoming more and more serious every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vatsa. Thank you. So you reminded us of the need to customize the solutions to the country context, to the city context, and how some problems and solutions may differ for developing countries within the South Asia. So your remarks on keeping all the solutions people-centric and also analyzing the problems from a social and citizen perspective and the need for national policies to govern the entire process is duly noted. Now I have in my notes Professor Gosain of Indian Institute of Technology in Delhi. He's a professor of civil engineering. And may I invite you, Professor Gosain, for your remarks and reactions. And if you can wrap up in 6 to 7 minutes, that would be great and allow us to touch base with other counterparts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you much. At the outset, again, I'll like to thank World Bank to give me this opportunity and taking forward the points which have been raised by Dr. Watts. I think that's the truth, that we have to really differentiate between what are the ground realities of the developing countries and how they need to really address those issues while tackling the issue of the urban flooding. I'll just substantiate that by taking an example of the Delhi. We were asked to do the drainage master plan of Delhi. And the first requirement was to understand why Delhi gets flooded with a very small normal rainfall as well. So we started analyzing, and the most important thing was to really evaluate what is the present efficacy of the drainage system of Delhi. And that's where the problem was mainly responsible for very frequent flooding in Delhi. Most of the drainage systems, which are man-made and natural combined, they are under the maintenance with 11 different departments. And majority of the time, they are not cleaned properly. Even if they are cleaned, they are not cleaned in a manner that there is no blockage in between, and there is the efficacy of whatever is the conveyance of water when they are required to be acting. That was one thing which we found, that it needs effort in terms of putting in place. Money is being spent every year, but the efficacy is not checked. And we also then came out with various kinds of solutions, because I feel that it's important to understand that the developing countries, when it comes to affordability, whatever solutions you are trying to put in place, you have to look at what is the cost effectiveness of those solutions. So we deliberately tried to look at which are the low-hanging fruits which can be really implemented and utilized as far as the case of Delhi, and that is true for every other city also. We also found that in the case of Delhi, around 40% of the sewage is not going to the sewage treatment plants. So all this sewage which is getting generated, it ultimately lands into the storm drains, and finally it goes from the storm drains into the river Yamuna, because Yamuna is the river which passes through Delhi. And Delhi also gets flooded by both pluvial and fluvial floods. So there's another act the NGT has put in place, that the drainage system should not getting any sewage. And there's that sewerage master plan which is getting implemented. But as of now, majority of the spaces of the storm drains is taken up by the sewage, which is flowing every day on an annual, on a 24/7 basis. That was another issue which was to be tackled. Then we also started looking at the nature-based solutions, that if we want to, I'll also mention one other thing which was very important and very, very specific to the Indian cities or the South Asian cities. Most of the cities, localities, if you see, the local city level, the street level drains are no more there. The storm drains are gone. So inadvertently, every resident has connected their rooftop water to the sewer line. And since we have the separate sewerage system, the sewer lines are not designed for that. So the moment rain comes, there are segments of the sewer lines which get surcharged, and the localities are flooded with the sewage, not the stormwater only. Once the stormwater goes in, they start oozing the the stormwater along with the sewage. So if we need to plug that, you have to find out a solution which is cost effective. So we came out with the idea that we have in Delhi, we have so many parks. Every locality has a park next to it. Can we depress the park by 1 feet and take this rooftop water of the locality into the park? In the process, you will have rainwater harvesting at no cost because Delhi uses a lot of groundwater and the groundwater table is falling down year after year. So that will benefit the recharge of the groundwater, as well as you don't have to spend any money on this rainwater harvesting. So that was another option given. And in each option, since we had done the hydrological and the hydrodynamic modeling of the Delhi whole system, we could quantify that how much will be the advantage, how much will be the reduction in the flooding of different locations if you implement these solutions. Then we came out with another scenario. The Delhi had so many natural water bodies, which are, some of them have been lost, some of them are being encroached. So can we rejuvenate some of those water bodies? So we again ran another scenario to quantify that if you do this, and there we gave the connection that which is the connection, which area, what is the drainage area of that water body, and how the connection for the overflow can be given so that it goes into a stormwater and then doesn't flood the local area around the water body. So all that was done and made available. There also, we could find that a lot of water can be stored and it can be detained. Because if you start looking at the final solutions, which are very expensive and very difficult to implement, as Dr. Vats has mentioned, that the space is a problem. You cannot think of enhancing the size of your the drains. So we have come out with these solutions and then given it to the Delhi government and asked them that let's implement these solutions and then evaluate what is the benefit the society has got for these solutions. And there are some issues, the majority of the issues, the solid waste management has to be done properly, the local communities have to participate. So all those things are important, that the solid waste shouldn't land into the stormwater drains, which is happening now. But the existing solid waste which is already there, we have such big drains which are equivalent to your European rivers. They are silted up. So it needs a lot of money and resources to really clean those because they are running with the sewage and that sewage has settled down. That is where we will need the solutions which are and the steps which have to be taken, which are systematic, and we can keep on proving that this step has worked very well and then start taking them into the national policy. I think those are the things which are very important. I'll just take one more minute. As far as the fluvial floods are concerned, we already have modeled, because there the situation is different. There you have to look at the natural river basins, and in the river basins, if you are trying to create an early warning system, which we have done, you need to implement all the man-made changes. You have to implement all the projects which you have put in place. And India has around 4,500 big dams. So you have to incorporate those and incorporate their operation policies also, so that you can simulate first the hydrology of the area, which is incorporating the irrigations and all those things, and then create the early warning system. That is what we have done. We are using the rainfall forecast of India Meteorological Department and giving the early warning for every river basin at any location of the river network. What is the flow which is going to come in the next 5-6 days? Because they are using two models for rainfall forecasting, the WRF and the JFS. So one gives 4-day ahead forecast, the other gives 6 days ahead forecast. So now we are in a position to really give an early warning for any location, and every day we are simulating the whole country with the new set of rainfall forecasts which are made available to us by the India Meteorological Department. So I think in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that it's important that when we are looking at these problems, we have to, all these simulations are data intensive. We have to keep on enhancing the quality of our data, because when you're doing the hydrodynamic modeling, especially in the case of urban areas, if your baseline, if your digital terrain is not proper, then the hydrodynamic modeling is not going to give you good results. So you have to invest in the baseline to be captured properly, and then the solutions have to be found out in a very systematic manner, where you have to look at what is the affordability of the municipalities, because municipalities that don't have that kind of affordability in India. If the government of India is giving some money, they might be giving not regularly, it is only given for specific purposes. And we have to strengthen their capacity. We have to also technically make them strengthen their technical capability, because what we did for Delhi government, there was nobody in Delhi government who was willing to take over those models and then start working on those. So that capacity has to be built. And if we do all these things in conjunction, I'm sure that we'll be able to give the society solutions which are really affordable and workable. Thank you much.
Thank you so much, Professor Gosain. Indeed, even when situations where there is infrastructure in place, how it is maintained, how it is affected by settlement behaviors of citizens, all the encroachments and everything, brings another layer of problems, as you described. So now we have Professor Shashwat Bandyopadhyay, who is a member of the high-level commission and faculty of planning in the Center of Environmental and Planning Technology University. Professor Shashwat, would you like to come in and maybe share your reflections, maybe within 5 minutes, if possible? Thank you so much.
Definitely. Thank you very much, and good evening from Ahmedabad, India, and maybe good morning to some of you at different parts of the world. And I must thank Amparo and Mansi, who really spearheaded, invited me to join this webinar. I come from a spatial planning school in Ahmedabad, and we have been working and researching to look at the land use planning solutions or response to urban flooding, because traditionally there has been a lot of hydrometeorological or engineering response. And what we are looking at more like how the land use plans, development control regulations can be played in reduction of the flood risk. And I was very excited to see these two presentations, especially the cloudburst management plan of Copenhagen. In fact, some of our streets, Indian Road Congress guidelines are also now actually, kind of redirected to have certain plan for cloudburst. Now, what happens here, as two of my previous speakers has been mentioning about this, that we are at the forefront of urbanization. And when we see urbanization in the southern part of the world, we see two distinct things are happening. One is the core city is getting densified, and more importantly, there is a sprawling in the city. And my team here in Ahmedabad, we are actually monitoring the sprawling in the city, and we see most metro cities in India sprawling about 20 to 30 square kilometer every year. So this is the physical changes that are happening. And what we see, and from the lessons that, whether it is from Copenhagen or various others, we see that, you have to, when you look at the urban planning response, there are three levels. What you look at the regional scale, when you look at as a development plan scale, and I think I saw some of the images from Copenhagen as well as Buenos Aires. These are more urban design scale. So you have to create a planning framework. So it's a combination of, land use response, engineering response, and of course the managerial response, cleaning up the drain, managing your waste. And what our research that we are trying to focus, and at least we are working in 3 cities, Ahmedabad, Bhubaneswar, and we're trying to see that how we accelerate our response in terms of development control and building level regulation. That's what, you will be able to put certain amount of green roofing and localizing bioswales at the plot level. But the second problem, what we are encountering in a city like India, the land is being private. Now, when you want to make this, those streams, those or stream ordering, those areas clean or protected, then you need to create either acquire those land or create a fiscal incentive. And those are, I think, I'm very happy to report to this August audience here, at least 2 Indian states are working today to create something called Eco TDR or Green TDR. TDR is a compensatory framework for land given for public purpose. So there is the state of Telangana, state of Andhra to actually compensating the plot owners for retaining certain amount of sponge in their areas. So from the building level to the neighborhood level to the street level, community garden level, we need to develop a flood responsive spatial planning hierarchy, including the regulation. And I think this is the challenge, and we are at the beginning end of it, because so far the response has been more towards the engineering and management. Not so many cases of we don't see so many sponge LDPs or local area plan. We don't see so many design. Of course, there is a street design guideline which has just come up about the sponge streets being tried and tested. So we are at the early stages of learning, and I see because given the kind of changing pattern, the weather cloudburst pattern, I was just working in a eastern part of Indian state, and you see that within 2 hours you get almost about 150 mm rainfall. The cloudburst events are more frequently coming and visiting us. So we need to proactively look at land use response, engineering and management together, not single-handedly. And then we also need to step up our efforts to sensitizing people who are building homes. A whole lot of kind of architect, urban designer, urban planners, the whole chain needs to be sensitized about that the entire capacity needs to be built up among the planners, designers, and architects, of course, the schools of planning across South Asia, to actually build up a response more comprehensively. And the last point I wanted to mention, because so far that flood response to flood has been looked at as a more of an irrigation department or one particular department looking at this, but more and more it is asking for a whole of government approach. What I mean this is not only an irrigation and water resource, it requires a land use planners, it also requires a forestry guys coming together, and that's the kind of a challenge that we need to overcome and to develop this as a more resilient and sustainable infrastructure. Thank you once again for giving me this opportunity, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Shashwat, for your wise remarks on how multidisciplinary should be the intervention, how we should bring all disciplines, not just the engineering or technical areas, to find solutions, because even the perfect technical engineering solution will not work if we cannot bring in all those other elements you kindly mentioned. Now, I apologize for the technical glitch on my part. I see that I've been informed that we have counterparts from Pakistan and Bangladesh, but I'm unable to identify their names. But I would like to invite them, if they're online, if they would like to come in and share their remarks, their perspective, before we switch to the discussants. I do not see any hands or any. Oh, sorry. From Bangladesh, Cox's Bazar, we have Mr. Tanvir. Would you like to come in, Tanvirji?
Thank you very much for arranging this webinar, and especially thanks to 3 presenters from Valencia, Copenhagen, and from Buenos Aires. Exactly, Bangladesh is a South Asian nation. You all know that it's a highly densely populated country, and I am a town planner at Cox's Bazar Development Authority. Here we also face flash flood basically because the pattern is a tourist city beside the ocean and the Bay of Bengal. So one side it is the ocean and the other side it is a hilly area. When this surface runoff from the rainwater, it became disaster, especially 2 or 3 months ago. There was a big disaster in this area because of this uncertain flooding. And we, the land use planner, also try to mitigate this by using the land use of this area. But the major problem which the professor from Ahmedabad, he also said that the ownership pattern of land is a challenge to mitigate this problem because nobody wants his land to stock water there. Everybody in the urban area wants to build their asset or buildings or other things for in a profitable use. They don't try to allow their land for this purpose. And for this matter, already Professor said that the incentives or the acquisition is a measure, but here also a financial involvement required. And land ownership pattern, another major issue here. And the plan, we also have plan, but major challenge is in the implementation phase because the policymaker or in the national framework, we must think about the issues of this. Suppose we may say it is natural disaster, but we are the human, we also guided by nature. We are creating this disaster. We cannot say it is natural because our livelihood pattern, our living pattern, our action are creating this problem. And we cannot tell them it is natural. We, the human being, we can control by our activities. So we should try to connect the blue network from canal to river, then to the ocean, as we have the ocean beside us. So mainly my profession is to ownership, like privately owned in our country, land is privately owned. And another point is the implementation of plan. And finally, the policy framework. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tanvir, for sharing Bangladesh perspective. Do we have any other counterparts who would like to come in very quickly? From Pakistan or any other South Asia countries, from our government counterparts? Yolanta, do you see anybody that I'm missing?
No, I don't see.
No.
So
Yeah.
I think we can move on to discussions.
Okay, then let's move on to our two distinguished discussants. So and let me echo Professor Shashwat's thanks to Amparo and Mansi, but they put together quite a heavy full agenda. So I wish we had more time for open questions and answers. But let's see. So as discussants, we have two distinguished experts. Ms. Laura Tucan, who is an independent planning expert from Romania, and Mr. Dr. Hans Geras from Deltares. He's a global lead on urban resilience. And Amparo and the team, they prepared two questions for each, but I will try to combine them so that we can move more efficiently. So Ms. Tucan, my first question will be to you, please. So if you could give us your perspective, also considering the discussion and the presentations we have listened about the biggest challenges and opportunities in Romania for integrating flood risk management into urban planning. And what are some of the examples, again, challenges and opportunities for use of nature-based solutions? And in Romania, what are you doing to overcome them and advance flood protection? Thank you so much.
Hello, thank you. I'm glad to be part of this webinar, and I will answer very quickly because I know I have limited time. So, regarding the first question, mainly the biggest challenges here in Romania is the lack of clear guidance for the integration process. Because lots of stakeholders here don't know what they should do and what is their part in this activity. Each of them has an important and a very key role here regarding the integration process, but none of these roles are mentioned very clearly in our legal framework. Moreover, the involvement of each actor and each stakeholder in this integration process is not well known, except from practice. So this is the major problem. Very important is that in this regard, the World Bank produced for our two ministries, the Ministry of Development, Public Works and Administration, and also for the Ministry of Environment, a very useful handbook. This was a guideline to improve and to facilitate the integration process of flood risk management into urban and spatial planning. This was produced in line with the European Water Directive and considering the climate change challenges. And the most important part of this guideline is that it's a step-by-step handbook in order to guide all the relevant stakeholders in this integration process. And this is addressed to urban planners, public institutions, and also to the population. Also, it's very important that this guideline can be used right now, immediately, because it's not involving legal framework changes. So it's a very useful and a very important tool that right now is considered by our government in their activity. So we hope that this document and this guideline will be used by all the relevant stakeholders involved in this process. Regarding the other question, regarding the nature-based solutions and how these are tackled in our legal framework, this is also a problem because our current legislation does not have a provision regarding this issue. The guideline mentioned before by me also integrated some technical proposals included in some fact sheets for the nature-based solutions that could be integrated in urban and spatial planning documentations here in Romania, but also integrated some examples of nature-based solutions that can be used. Moreover, very important is that complementary to this guideline, World Bank produced also proposed guidance that provided some recommendations addressing to legal framework changes that should be done in order to integrate some aspects regarding the nature-based solutions. Aspects that should be adopted also in short term, but mainly in long term, because we are talking about legal framework changes. So this can be adopted in a long term rather than in short term. This integration of and adoption of nature-based solutions can be done by shifting our approach, and this guidance integrated some recommendations regarding this aspect, because authorities and also the private sector should shift their approach from a sectoral thinking to a more integrated and holistic approach regarding the managing of floods. What this implies, the proposal of the guidance is that different functions that a modern city entails should be included in flood risk and resilient cities. So nature-based solutions should be integrated more in the urban and spatial planning documents after this document and using this document. In the chat, I will provide you two important links. One link is conducting you to these two very relevant documents for us, but could be used also in other countries. And the other is for floodings that on the major project that was developed here in Romania, with a lot of documents that were developed during a project proposed and developed by the European Union. So I will copy the links and give you in the chat so you can consult them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Special thanks for sharing the links. Now, shall we quickly move to Dr. Geras of Deltares? And how would you describe some resilient and innovative solutions for water storage in urban areas, which came up several times in presentations or remarks as a key element of both the problem and the solution for flood protection? And in your experience, how would you tackle these problems? And if you can give us your remarks in maybe 2 minutes, we will have some minutes for you's closing remarks. Dr. Geras, over to you.
Thank you very, very much, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of this interesting webinar. And I am going to keep it very short. We have seen beautiful examples in these three presentations, notably in Buenos Aires and in Copenhagen of nature-based solutions, of ecosystem-based solutions. And if I would have to summarize it, perhaps I could say that, well, first of all, resilient and perhaps almost classical examples, classical proven solutions of cost-efficient and effective NBS to store water are bioswales. We have seen examples also in the presentation. Bioswales, well known in many countries, I think, throughout the world, and rain gardens also. Also, like permeable pavement and roads are also examples, existing examples that have been applied at multiple places and have proven to be, well, cost efficient and effective. Also, green roofs is an example. So those are just a few examples of existing water storage solutions. If you think of more innovative services, then the question is, well, what could be more innovative than these classical examples? They could be examples that not only store water, but are also preferably circular in the construction materials they use. For example, to use dredge material for the construction of solutions. So that could be, that's more of an innovative type with which there is less experience, but that could be even more sustainable if they become also cost effective and of cost efficient and effective. And additionally, more innovative would also be if these solutions are also multi-purpose, so have co-benefits, like we have seen applied also in Copenhagen, like so co-benefits in terms of biodiversity and health and so on. So multifunctional examples could be recreational and sports fields, that are sports fields and recreational areas in 99% of the time, but are also a capacity for water storage in those very exceptional circumstances where you need storage, additional storage for cloudbursts or less extreme rainfall flooding. perhaps also floodplains, or overflow areas, so dedicated overflow areas that are in use under normal conditions for not for water storage but for other purposes, but that can act as serve as water storage in very exceptional situations. So summarizing, innovative solutions are preferably simple and relatively cheap, of course, without complex control systems or too much infrastructure involved, and made of what otherwise be considered as waste material.
Thank you so much, Dr. Geras. Thank you. So unfortunately, we do not have time for open questions and answers, but I invite all participants to share their comments, questions, any follow-up requests for more information on any of the topics or examples we have discussed, we have heard from our presenters. With our team, I put Amparo's email in the chat. Most of you must already have it, but please do reach out to us and we will be more than happy to facilitate further conversation. We thank sincerely to all presenters, speakers, our government counterparts, and excellent discussants for everything that they have shared with us. It was a great learning opportunity for me, for sure, and I'm sure you all feel the same. And with this, may I invite Yup, who is our lead water resources management specialist for South Asia region, but he has so much experience in all around the world in other countries. So over to you, Yup, for your closing remarks, please. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Elif. And I'll take 2 minutes because we're getting late. So first of all, also on my behalf, thanks to the presenters and discussants for the interesting presentations and good reflections. So for me, the presentation made clear that there are many good practices and innovations, as we know, to deal with current flood issues in urban areas, and also to prepare for future events that in many urban areas will likely be more severe and impactful. Solutions can be local, as we heard in the case of Copenhagen and Buenos Aires, or more regional, as discussed for in the Valencia area. Now, considering the complexities and multi-sectoral issues and multiple agencies that deal with water issues and flood issues in cities, as said by some of the discussions, I agree that detailed planning is necessary. Again, Copenhagen made a case and Buenos Aires also. So that will then provide long-term solutions and guidance for structural and non-structural interventions, including nature-based solutions. I could talk a lot about Manila, as Elif said. I have worked a lot on that, but I will not do that. We will do that another time. Now, what I would like to say now is, while I like the solutions presented earlier, I do agree with Dr. Vatsa and the two professors that the situation in South Asian cities is much more complex. Jonathan also said working within existing infrastructure in the city is very difficult. I fully agree with that. Cities with the biggest flood issues have typically very densely populated areas with little space or green space for solutions as presented. Construction in narrow roads with lots of traffic 24/7 is also very complicated. Cities like Chennai and Bangalore, they have as many people as we have in the Netherlands, but you can understand the density in these areas. So any construction is complicated. Then there is, of course, and I think Professor Gossain said that, or someone else, there is the added problem of sewage and stormwater drains that is not being taken care of properly. And then there is the encroachment. I work in Chennai, and encroachment is a big issue, and as same as in other big cities in India and Bangladesh. Now, the approach in Valencia I like, including flood hazard mapping linked to land use planning, is what we work on in several cities, including in Chennai, where we have a P4R with a Chennai City Partnership. We really need to, wherever possible, look upstream as well and keep peak flood water out of urban areas. until there is sufficient capacity within the urban drains and waterways to release that water through the cities into the ocean. Hans didn't mention, but of course in Holland we have this room for the river concept, which is exactly doing that, based on risk-based approaches for decision making, and allow inundation of certain areas during flood events to keep urban areas further downstream dry. Now, in conclusion, the presentation and discussions have given us, I think, bank staff who have been in this webinar, good ideas and food for thought to allow us to come up with better integrated solutions for flood management. And we're looking forward to work with some of the partners, especially in India, where we have this national program for flood management, and the bank is looking forward to contribute to that. So I thank again all the speakers for the presentation and the discussions. And I think, Elif, we have now come to the end of this webinar, and I again thanks for participation to all the ones who were online. And I will say now bye for now and until the next event. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joop. Indeed, end of the webinar, but hopefully beginning of a fruitful collaboration among all partners. Thank you so much. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks for your participation and patience.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.